Hi, welcome to this video about my part of my PhD diaries, right? So, where I left off last time was where I was prepping you guys to hear about the qualifying exam. So, what is the qualifying exam, right? So, that is every PhD student's perhaps one of the most uh, trying tests of all. Okay, you test the mettle of every PhD student. Okay, is the perhaps the bane of it as well. Okay, so qualifying exams can come in many different kinds of formats. So for me in UC Berkeley, it's just one of the formats available, right? So what happens during a qualifying exam, right? Let's say you have a whiteboard here, right? You, the poor PhD student, or yeah, the PhD student will be standing right in front here, right? Okay, and then there will be like a table right here where maybe 3 or 4 professors will be seated right here. Okay, and you will be presenting a set of PowerPoint slides. All right, about your research. Okay, so one is about research. Yeah, so okay. Second is on your coursework. Okay, coursework. Okay, so these are the two main components. Okay, so for my qualifying exam, I was done examine on coursework first and then research. So yes, so that is the general format of an qualifying exam. Now, normally what I've seen other students do is that yeah, they'll be in here facing a panel of 4 professors. They'll be presenting on their course. They'll be presenting on their research, or they'll be asked questions about their coursework. Okay, and then all the professors they're able to ask any question they want anytime to see whether you really know your stuff. One of the professors will be a supervisor. Okay, and my supervisor is Professor Peterson. Was Professor Peterson when I was at Berkeley. Okay, and there were and then the other 3 professors, you kind of have to go around the department, seeing whether anyone is willing or interested to vet your work. Okay, so this process can take about anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. Okay, shorter ones maybe 1 hour, but that's kind of rare. Okay, so I'll say 1 to 4 hours. This qualifying exam, it can be that. So if your qualifying exam doesn't last so long, then it's either very good or very bad news. Okay, what does spending very little time at the qualifying exam mean? It means that it means that either you are very good and the whole board, the whole panel knows they can pass you, or you did very badly, and then the whole board thinks, okay, I don't want to waste any more time. Now, if you actually stretch a bit longer, maybe 2 3 hours, even the 4th hour, right? Yeah, if you stretch very long, then what they're trying to do is to give you opportunities to explain yourself and display your knowledge and your thought processes. Okay, so they'll ask you more questions. So when supervisors ask you more questions, it doesn't mean they want to fail you. They actually want to pass you. Okay, uh, they're trying to pass you. They're not trying to fail you per se, but they will not go lenient on the standards. You're still expected to know your stuff, or else you cannot qualify as a PhD. Okay, so this is the general format of the qualifying exam, and usually since it's about most people maybe prepare 3 to 4 hours. What some of the students do is that they'll prepare coffee. All right, so coffee, pizza, so on and so forth, just to give give the supervisors some refreshments, in order so that they won't torture themselves listening to you. So coffee, snacks, pizza. I don't know what else was done. Okay. Now, for me personally, I did not have any of this. Why? Because my qualifying exam was during COVID. So I had mine over Zoom. So what happened for me was, okay, I went into a Zoom room. So this is the Zoom room, and I'll see my supervisors and the examiners on screen, right? On screen, right? So 4 examiners will be on screen. Uh, and then they started asking me questions. Okay, they started asking me questions about, okay, for example, Neutronics. Okay, yeah, talk about reactor theory. Okay, so they asked about reactor theory, and then normally in a qualifying exam, you are supposed to use your marker to do all your mathematics on a how to say, you do all your mathematics on the board. I did not have the board, so I did it the best way I knew how. Okay, of course I could draw using my mouse, but I did not have a mouse. I used LaTeX. Okay, so what's LaTeX like? I had my PDF. LaTeX is a code that helps you generate very nice PDFs. So yeah, LaTeX is a code that actually helps you produce very good PDFs. And then, but it's in code form. So let's see. I mean, this is what LaTeX code actually looks like. And if you go on a VS Code or some other application, you will usually see your LaTeX output, which is a PDF file. And then on the right hand side, or it could be the left hand side, it's really up to you how you want to do it. But all the code that's being used to compile this PDF file is on the left hand side. So this is a very nice way to typeset equations. So what do these equations look like? Or maybe let me show you my dissertation. Yeah, this is my dissertation. So this is what LaTeX will actually look like. It's a very beautiful, beautifully typeset font. Okay, and when you want to do equations, let's see. Yeah, you do equations, you look something like this. It looks very neat. Okay, very pleasant to read. Okay, for equations anyway, at least compared to Microsoft Word, at least in my opinion. So what I do, because I was so familiar with LaTeX, so you literally type out the LaTeX code here and make the PDF compile in real time, and that's how I did my equation derivations. Of course, it helped that I did much of my things on YouTube before, so when I did my equation derivations, that was fine. And what did I derive? I derived the multi-group energy equations for neutron transport. Okay, multi-group diffusion, sorry. Okay, energy equations, and I was asked how do I get from the neutron transport equation? How do I then get to the form of the multi-group? And then I was asked to demonstrate that, and I used LaTeX. I mean, the professors were a bit surprised that I wanted to use LaTeX, but I did it anyway, and I managed to do it. Demonstrate the diffusion or multi-group diffusion equation for energy. Multi-group diffusion equations, as in multi-energy groups to be precise. Okay, so multi-group diffusion. What else was I tested on? If I do remember correctly, okay, what are the feedback mechanisms? Feedback mechanisms for reactors. Okay, feedback mechanism for reactors, specifically the Doppler feedback or fuel temperature feedback that is based on the Doppler broadening. of neutron resonances, cross-section resonances when for neutron reactions, fuel temperature feedback. So I was asked to explain things like these to show that I know my stuff. Okay, but honestly, once they see all the academic coursework you have done, they can ask any question or any of these. Okay, so do be prepared, for qualifying exams, they can do that. Then next thing I did was to start presenting about my research. Okay, what was my research plan? How do I plan to carry it out? Okay, so for this, usually I had about 20 slides. Okay, 20 slides for my PowerPoint, and they can stop me anytime and ask any question they want. Yeah. Now, I was trying to look for my slides for the qualifying exam. I cannot remember where I put it. But basically, these were slides detailing my early research plan. Okay, and it had to sort of change halfway. All right, so I guess it's a good segue to start talking about my research. Okay, what did I do for my PhD? All right, what did I do for my PhD? And let's just give you some background into why I did what I did. Right. So first I came into UC Berkeley with a hope. I hope to simulate nuclear reactors. I thought that was actually quite cool to be able to simulate nuclear reactors. Uh, spec- oh, yeah, to simulate nuclear reactors, I thought it was a very cool thing. When I was in my undergrad, I did some modules on computational methods and simulations. Okay, and using partial differential equations or ordinary differential equations in order to simulate nuclear reactors. Right? So that was what I was to do. Okay. And of course, being one of the first, I'm the first Singaporean to be in UC Berkeley as a PhD student. Okay, I think what was advised to me is to learn as much as possible from my professors here. Okay, so this was the second goal: learn as much as possible. As possible. Okay, learn as much as possible from my professors here. Yeah. So I have a hunger and thirst for learning. I wanted to learn everything possible about nuclear reactors. This was very interesting for me. There's always, this mystery as to how nuclear reactors work, and I wanted to know how to at least know the ins and out of almost every single aspect of nuclear reactors as possible. So that means that for me meant taking a variety of coursework, but it also means I wanted to do a lot of simulation techniques. Okay, I wanted to learn all the simulation techniques. Now the third thing I wanted to learn when I started my research journey. So let me put this here. And okay, this is when I started. Okay. Okay, so the next thing I was hoping to do was to do a mixture of experimental work. Okay, where I actually go into the lab and start doing things. Experimental work plus simulation. So it's like a 50-50 kind of mixture. So it provides me the best exposure possible. It's kind of correlated with goal number 2 that I want to learn as much as possible as well. Of course, when I was in UC Berkeley, unfortunately, there was no live reactor there. I could not touch anything. So, yeah, best I could do is simulation and different kinds of experiments, the non-nuclear experiments. But they do shed light into how the reactor actually works as well. Now, fourth thing, yeah, there was this molten salt loop. All right, this molten salt reactor. Okay, the molten salt reactor had this okay, MSR. I wanted to research on the molten salt reactor. However, when I started UC Berkeley, there was this reactor called the fluoride salt cooled high temperature reactor, and I'll explain this shortly. Okay, I wanted to do this fluoride salt cooled high temperature reactor research, and that landed me into my advisor. All right, or rather, I did want to do molten salt reactor research, but when I watched YouTube, I found out about my supervisor, Professor Per Peterson, and then he was doing FHR, fluoride salt cooled high temperature research. And then in that YouTube video I saw, let's see. Yeah. Right. So here's the video I watched. It's 10 years ago now, but this is the video.
Under 4 seconds.
Okay, this is the video that got me into my lab. Okay, it uses it's basically a scale model of the molten salt reactor. Okay, we call it the compact integral effects test. It has a scale model. It uses a scale model. This is actually a scale model of the molten salt reactor, or specifically the fluoride salt cooled high temperature reactor. So it's a scale model, and I thought, hey, that's actually pretty cool. I wanted to start working on this, and I worked with Professor Peterson. Right, that was my ambition back then. Okay, me being being a guy from Singapore, and back then Singapore is like I don't even know whether doing anything nuclear is possible, let alone do research on what I like, which is this molten salt reactor, generation 4 reactor. And then I see my professors and this Kirk Sorensen on YouTube, and I don't even know if it's possible to meet them in real life, right? But thankfully I did. So this is Professor Peterson, about 10 years ago. This is Kirk Sorensen. I met him as well in one of the at Oak Ridge National Lab. I was graciously given a paid opportunity to go to there for molten salt reactor workshop. Yeah, go there for the molten salt reactor workshop, and I met Kirk Sorensen among many people. Right, it was pretty cool to see people on YouTube, my professors on YouTube. So the people who inspired me on YouTube, and then I meet them in real life, including this Gordon McDowell. I saw him in real life too. It was nice to talk to him. I was a big fan of his videos. Yeah. And yeah, it was a dream, and thank God, dream come true. So these were, I think, some of the goals that I had in mind when I started my research. Okay, so yeah, where are we? Yeah, so this is me right at the beginning. Yeah. So yeah, maybe I'll stop talking now. I will start talking about the what my research is about, how my research journey actually went after, after I started, semester by semester, what happened, and then how did I respond, especially in the COVID pandemic. Yeah, because that actually disrupted my research plans a lot. Okay, so I'll stop now, and thanks for watching.